Well, my name is Ron Days. I'm a native of St. Helena Island, South Carolina, in Beaufort County. And because I am a Gullah Geechee native, I am a man of the waterways. Waters were always around us. The water influences our language. Our speechways, like labyrinthine waterways flowing in and out of the marshes and the rivers. I grew up seeing people crabbing and fishing, shrimping, and shucking oysters, etc., all of the waterways around us. And the music of Gullah Geechee people also is highly influenced, I'd like to think, by the waterways. It's a part of our history. The rhythms of our music come from our West African forebears, where there's a pulsating beat, not by drums, but sometimes it can be replicated with hand clapping and foot stomping, as was sung during religious practices. The rhythms also were heard in our call and response songs for the working in the fields and on the waterways. With the call and response, a leader calls out the words, and then everyone else answers back, falling into rhythm. And whatever job that you were doing, everyone could work together. If they were hoeing in the fields, they would sing. If they were dropping seeds in the ground, the rhythm would make everyone work together. A song like, oh, day, yonder come day, oh, day, yonder come day, oh, day, yonder come day, day done broke in my soul, yonder come day. Now, the sometimes as part of religious practices, the songs with the adaptation to Christianity, many of the songs had references to waterways. There is a very familiar one that would be sung during the period of slavery, when those who wished to be free would try to escape. They would flee through the marshes and the waterways, and of course, a bloodhound would be set on their tracks. And those who were left behind would let the freedom seekers know what they needed to do so that the bloodhounds would not be able to track their scent. And they would begin singing, "Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. See that man all dressed in white. God's gonna trouble the water. It look like the leader of the Israelites. God's gonna trouble the water. You better wade in the water. Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Now, on St. Helena Island, it's part of our spiritual practices. If anyone wanted to join the church during my childhood, he or she would have to go through a process of seeking religion in the wilderness, going out to the woods. They would be dressed all in white, and usually one by one they would be sent out. They would have a white cloth around their heads, and they would have to have a dream or see a vision that would be interpreted by their spiritual leader as evidence that they had come through or had found religion. If it was determined that this was not a good dream, more or less, they would be sent back out into the woods late at night by themselves. And anything white, a white horse, a white cat, a white person, was seen, a dream of such was seen as evidence that they had come through. And then they would go through a creek shore baptism. Although I didn't participate in seeking religion practice, I was baptized as part of a creek shore baptism. And once again, the deacons as well as the baptismal candidates will be dressed in white as the processional from the church down to the waterway. Songs would be sung. Take me to the water. Take me to the water. Take me to the water to be baptized. Do you love my Jesus? Do you love my Jesus? Do you love my Jesus? Yes, I do. None but the righteous. None but the righteous. None but the righteous shall see God. Take me to the water. Take me to the water. Take me to the water to be baptized. Of course, there is a very old, familiar hymn. It's not a spiritual, but in fact, it was written because of the moans that the songwriter heard at the bottom of the slave ships. Because the Africans, primarily from West Africa, were down in the bowels of the ships, and their feet, their wrists, their throats had chains around them. They were lying prone on the wooden floors, side by side, and the songwriter heard moans. Mm, 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 Now, in the prayers houses, or praise houses that they were called in some of the Sea Island communities, I believe that in Georgetown there weren't many praise houses, but in these praise houses, or sometimes in the churches of Baptist or AME denominations, there would be a type of song that would be sung. It's called these metered songs. There'd be common meter, long meter, and short meter. And someone, a leader of the church, would line the hymns, more or less. The leader would stand to the front to begin a devotional service. They would call out the words of the hymn, and this would be an individual who could read, and most of the other church members may not be able to read, or they would not be able to read music, so that they would sing to a particular meter that was called out. And if the hymn Amazing Grace was called, was lined, the leader might say, Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. Common meter, step back and sing. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me, that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Was blind, but now I see. And with all those voices joining in, some singing harmonies, some wailing, the rhythms were just like if you were out on a boat, a rowboat, out on the waterways, on a ship, out sailing far away from the land. Call and response songs, sometimes stevedores, those at the would be at the boat docks, and they would sing these songs. A very familiar one, I first heard it by the Georgia Sea Island Singers. Pay me my money down. I've heard that it was a song that would be sung by stevedores down, sail to the Barbados and other islands, and it would be sung, but it was the rhythm of it and the harmonies of it as sung by the Georgia Sea Islands singers are just etched in my memory. Pay me, you owe me, pay me my money down, pay me or go to jail, pay me my money down, oh pay me, you owe me, pay me my money down, pay me or go to jail, pay me my money down. One of the earliest recordings of the lyrics of spirituals was in the Atlantic Monthly magazine around about 1856, I believe. Songs heard on St. Helena Island, South Carolina, one of them or several of them related to water. There's a familiar one. Charlotte Fortin, who was the first African American instructor at Penn School, one of the first schools in the South for freed enslaved Africans, heard this song sung by boatmen. Michael rowed a boat ashore, hallelujah. Michael rowed a boat ashore, hallelujah. Milk and honey on the other side, hallelujah. Milk and honey on the other side, hallelujah. Michael rowed the boat ashore, hallelujah. Michael rowed the boat ashore, hallelujah. There were sea shanties sung by those who worked the waterways, would assist them with the rowing of the oars. Now, songs were sung based with tempos based on the type of conditions of the water. High tide, when it's kind of rough, they may have to row a different way than when it was easy. Michelle Moore wrote a novel, The Cigar Factory, a few years ago, and she wanted to do a theatrical presentation of this novel. I was involved. One of the songs that the Mosquito Fleet, which was a very historic group of Charleston African American or Gullah Geechee seamen, and she wanted, one of the songs was Holloway Rosie. Now, I didn't know anything about any of the sea shanties, and so I thought about how these Gullah Geechee people might sing this shanty. A few years afterwards, I learned that this was a Scottish shanty song. So the melody that I heard was somewhat reminiscent, but quite a little different. But the way that I envisioned that it might have been sung. Rosie, I'm a handsome gal, Holloway Rosie, Holloway gal. Rosie, I'm a handsome gal, Holloway Rosie, Holloway gal. Fancy slippers and fancy shawl, Holloway Rosie, Holloway. Rosie gone to the fancy ball, Holloway Rosie, Holloway gal. Now there were other songs. One I recall from my childhood, related again to the waterways. We'll stand the storm, it won't be long. We'll anchor by and by. We'll stand the storm, it won't be long. We'll anchor by and by. A ship is on the ocean. We'll anchor by and by. A ship is on the ocean. We'll anchor by and by. Oh, yes, we'll stand the storm. It won't be long. We'll anchor by and by. We'll stand the storm. It won't be long. We'll anchor by and by. It's headed for the harbor. We'll anchor by and by. It's headed for the harbor. We'll anchor by and by. Oh, yes, we'll stand the storm. It won't be long. We'll anchor by and by. We'll stand the storm. It won't be long. We'll anchor by and by. And that song to me is reflective of the significance, the importance of being Gullah Geechee. Gullah Geechee involves our history. It involves our connections with our West African ancestors, as well as the communities of other island communities throughout the world where Africans were enslaved during the transatlantic slave trade. Jamaica, the West Indies, Trinidad, Cuba, even Brazil. It also involves our speechways, the rhythm of the way that we speak, the intonations, the lilting of our voices, as well as foodways. All of the foods from the oceans, from the rivers, the shrimp, we call them swimps, the fish, we say fush, crabs, aishas, or oysters, as well as the foods grown in gardens that need water in order to for them to grow, for the in the woods, those plants that are used for herbal remedies, which again need water in order to grow. And water is needed in order to steep them, or to make salves and poultices, remedies that some people would regard as root medicine, but really were herbal remedies made by those who had the knowledge of how to use the plants, how to use the water for medicinal purposes, as well as the songs, some that I've demonstrated. And in our songs have been a release from the pressures of enslavement, has been the inspiration to endure, to have faith, to stand the storm with an awareness that we would anchor by and by, and with an understanding and an appreciation of our cultural heritage, our spirituality, our cultural practices, our art, our ways of knowledge of harnessing the land and also the waterways, we indeed will stand the storm and we will anchor by and by. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hello, I am Vanessa Green, and I'm in the sanctuary of Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Georgetown, South Carolina. Bethel has the distinction of being the first church to be independently started, established free of any plantation ties. And our first pastor was the Reverend Augustus C. Carr, who not only organized Bethel AME Church, but was a political organizer in a very general sense, in a time when it was very dangerous to do such work. So the first structure, the first Bethel AME, was built in 1882, about 100 feet from where I'm sitting now. The lumber was actually brought on logging barges to the docks in Georgetown and then towed in wagons up Broad Street to this site. The freed men, the emancipated men who were tasked with this challenge, were probably ship workers, stevedores, and skilled carpenters. The original wood structure of Bethel was replaced by the brick facade that we see today in approximately 1908 under the guidance of the pastor, who at the time was Reverend Mance. When I think about the first enslaved Africans arriving 2 blocks from where I live, it just does something to me. It sends shivers through me. And even though I did not grow up in Georgetown, South Carolina, my father was in the military. I feel that connection to Black people throughout the Atlantic who were transported from Africa to all parts of the world. When I travel in places of the Black Atlantic, like in the Caribbean, I was recently in Belize. When I go to Jamaica, down in Cuba, I feel this incredible connection. And I see people who remind me of my Georgetown, South Carolina family. When I'm in Jamaica, through the music and through the food and through the dance, I see my people from Georgetown. When I am in places like Panama or Cuba, I see evidence, I see the resonance of my people here in South Carolina in those places. And I always, always, always feel at home.
There are several components to Gullah culture. One of them is the culture and its connection to the water. The other, as mentioned earlier, would be the culture's connection to the Creator, which is their linkage of spirituality. And there was a time in South Carolina when congregation of African Americans were denied and prohibited. And so it was in the connection to the water, in finding their Creator, that the invisible church was established, where they would gather themselves by the riverside and speak into arbor bushes as to keep the voice mulled some. There is a long and deep connection between the Gullah culture and the water, particularly as my historical imagination would allow me to imagine here in Georgetown, my home, where there are 5 rivers, again, that run through this county. And I think of my ancestors and the ancestors of my friends and wonder how they made it over, it had to have been the connection with the Creator that allowed them to be able to endure what they did, built what they did, and ultimately died the way that they did. It's just something that is beyond me. But again, it is something that I am a part of. And so it carries me, it sustains me. And I still find, as my ancestors did, the connection between the water and the Creator as a part of my culture.
What does Gullah mean to me? I was brought up to believe that Gullah is a lot of everything. You have to realize that the Gullah language is a language of all these different tribes from Africa getting the language together and merging it with American language. You have to think about when these slaves came over, they didn't understand English, and then they didn't understand each other. So they had to combine their language and the English language to come up with something that they could use that was easier for them. So you got the words like come here or been there and all those things like that. And how does Gullah reflect with the river? Because it's a spiritual thing. When we sing, we bring everything together. And they used to have services at night down by the river because it was in secret, because they wanted to worship their God, our God, the way they wanted to. So Gullah means to me a smart kind of people. Because just think about it. How many languages do we know? They had to learn different languages, had to just understand and fear that if they didn't understand, what would happen. So sometimes when they go to the river and at night and they have their worship service and they had no kind of music, they just had the rhythm of the drums, you would hear somebody come up, one of the older women, and they'll start off with something as simple as, ooh. Then you hear the next person, ooh. Then you would hear somebody sing, wade in the waters, wade in the waters, chillin', wade in the water. God's gonna trouble them waters. Say it again. Wade in the waters, wade in the waters, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Oh, who's that walking in that white? Looks like the leader of the Israelite. We're gonna wade in the waters, wade in the waters, children, wade in the water. God gonna trouble them waters. Songs and what they mean and how you sing them determines how you feel sometimes. And I have this song, We Are Climbing Jacob's Ladder. And as I start, it starts up, we are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. See, when you use that kind of cadence, it's almost like soulful, and you praising God and you asking him for whatever it is you need. And then as you sing that song, it fills you and you start singing, we are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. Shoulders of the Lord. See, using the different cadence made you feel a different way. So any song you usually hear us singing in churches, African Americans, may start off as a simple and by the time you finish, they are up on their feet. So next time you hear a song as simple as Jesus Loves Me, you can take it from here to there. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Amazing grace, amazing grace, how sweet the sound, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound, how sweet the sound to save a wretch like me.